Welcome to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cattleman's Call podcast. Lane Nordland joining you here today, and we all know that the cattle industry has made significant changes in terms of cattle size and frame structure, but meat yield grading hasn't changed since the 1960s. So we are going to discuss new technology and new grading algorithms to help make some improvements in meat yield out in the countryside. We're going to be joined today by Dr. Ty Lawrence, a professor with West Texas A&M University, and James Henderson with Bradley 3 Ranch in Texas. But first, I do want to call all cattle producers because it's time to level up your livestock skills and join us this year for a Stockmanship and Stewardship regional event in Watertown, South Dakota, Canyon, Texas, or Springfield, Missouri. Get live cattle handling training from top experts, gain on-the-farm experience on how to boost your biosecurity protocol, earn your BQA certification, and learn strategies on how to enhance your grazing management strategies, and see real-world demonstrations that improve animal care and profitability. So if you want a chance to attend for free through reimbursement, sign up through the Rancher Resilience Grant. Find more information on grants at ncba.org under the Producer tab, and don't miss this chance to connect, learn, and lead during this Stockmanship and Stewardship in-person events in South Dakota, Texas, and Missouri. Register at stockmanshipstewardship.org. Well, as we get back to the meat of the matter here today in terms of meat yield, joining us, Dr. Ty Lawrence and James Henderson. We're having this conversation during CattleCon 25.
And gentlemen, I just want to welcome you to the Cattleman's Call podcast. And you guys are like, oh my God, he is just rattling on here like an auctioneer. James, I know you got a bull sale coming up here in a few days. What's it been like having an opportunity to talk to so many attendees at CattleCon this year through Cattleman's College?
Well, it's a great opportunity to highlight where we've been, specifically with the science of red meat yield, and give them some background and understanding into why we developed the system that we did almost 70 years ago, and how it's time to improve and update and maybe even retrofit the system a little bit.
And James, for yourself, what was it like sharing information and sharing your insight?
Well, from my standpoint, I've had both a background in the meat packing business, but today being a seed stock operator, producer, it's kind of my function as part of this is to try to make sure producers understand that one, today we're not capturing the information that we need to capture really to help us in determining red meat yield. But we also, anytime you talk about changing something, everybody starts to get nervous of how's that going to affect me, and try to make sure that producers understand we're trying to take all of those things into account and make sure that our starting point is the same as where we've always been from a financial standpoint, but create opportunity through improved red meat yield to move that needle quite a bit to pick up more premiums.
Dr. Lawrence, share a little bit about your background and how you found yourself with a PhD and there at West Texas A&M.
Sure, Lane. So I grew up on a cow-calf operation north of Delhart, Texas. Very active in 4-H, FFA, and rodeo. Went to West Texas A&M University and earned a bachelor's and a master's with my mentor, Dr. Ted Montgomery. And then I went on to Kansas State for a PhD and under the guidance of Michael Dykman. After that, it was time to start my career. And as luck would have it, the world's largest pork packer reached out and hired me. And I spent 2 years in research on the eastern seaboard with Smithfield Foods. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years there, and I had an opportunity to move home to West Texas A&M and take over the meat science program that Ted Montgomery began. He was the first professor of meat science, and I'm the second. And then over time, I've been fortunate to build a program and now lead a team that focuses on how do we improve the safety, the quality, and the value and yield of all red meat products.
Well, thank you for that quick bio. Appreciate you sharing that. And James Henderson, share more about your background, the family operation, and what kind of cattle you're going to be selling here in a few days.
Well, thank you. I grew up about 75 miles northwest of San Antonio here in the hill country of Texas, fourth generation rancher here in Texas. Attended Texas A&M and got involved on the meats judging team there and kind of fell in love with the industry and coached the meats judging team and helped start meats judging contest at the Houston Livestock Show. Spent 35 years in packing houses, the last 15 of which we were doing a branded beef program where we tried to capture every data point that we could on an animal and get that back to producers so that they could improve their cattle. My wife's family started in the Angus seed stock business in 1957, and we've been fortunate enough to carry that on and added Charolais cattle to that. And it's been part of my passion since being able to collect all of that data to try to get us to a system where we could monetize the value of red meat yield.
Well, I had a good time here a few months back. We had American Angus Association convention over there in Fort Worth. It was a really good convention this year.
Well, thank you. It's always fun to have it in Texas.
Getting home was another story. I'll save that for another podcast. The weather was not fun trying to get home. But, yeah, as we look at this, Dr. Lawrence, could you just share a broad understanding of what yield grades are? And again, those of us in the industry, I think we know about it, but there might be new people coming in that maybe need an overview. But, what they are and why they were created and maybe how some of the measurements have changed over time to the current period.
Sure. So in a nutshell, yield grades quantify how much. In essence, that is how much of a carcass ends up in a box and ends up going to an end consumer. That's the easiest definition I can provide your listeners. They were created in the mid-1960s to provide an estimate of carload yield. So recall that in that era, the packer was primarily just a slaughterhouse. The live animal walked in, they harvested the animal, and they chilled a carcass, and then they sold that carcass either in a side or in quarters to the end user. And the end user, be it a food service establishment or a retailer, they would have employed skilled butchers at the time, and they would have fabricated that carcass into all the subprimals and retail cuts that the consumer utilized. Now, moving forward into the mid to late 1980s, grid marketing began, and then we started using that yield assessment not to sell the carcass or to sell carloads of beef out, but to provide value and a sales transaction point between the cattle feeder and the beef processor. Now that use was not the intended use when it was created in the 1960s. Rather, it was created on a bulk of carcasses, think a carload, rather than on an individual animal basis. Now, the original assessment was developed using human graders and primarily based upon their visual appraisal of back fat, ribeye area, and the quantity of internal or KPH fat. And the carcass weight was also utilized, but they didn't have to guesstimate or visually appraise that. And then over time, because of a lack of repeatability and an excess of subjectivity, the industry has moved to camera grading or objective grading opportunities to improve the accuracy and the repeatability of the measurement.
And James, from your perspective on the cattle end of things, and especially the seed stock, how has that changed the game for commercial producers and particular seed stock producers that are looking to have good yield and helping producers that are buying your genetics, knowing that at the end, before that image is even seen of what that ribeye may be, that quality is going to be there? How has that changed the game, maybe from when your in-laws were first selling seed stock to now, and how that equation truly has helped change the trajectory of the industry?
Well, from a live animal standpoint, we've gone from the early days back in the 60s of animal herd improvement records, measuring weights and actual phenotypic measures that we could take on the cattle, to going to expected progeny differences, beginning to try to predict what the progeny from those sires and dams would produce, to genomics today of being able to look at DNA markers and so forth in those cattle, and feeding phenotypic data along with the genotypic data to try to come up with prediction equations on how to do that. Ultrasound has been a big part of that moving forward, where we could measure both intramuscular fat or marbling and measure ribeye size and back fat thickness in those cattle to try to help move toward yield grade. Nearly anything that we've done in this business, if we don't have the kind of accuracy that we're looking for, a lot of times we move the industry in some places we didn't intend, and one of those is by selecting according to ribeye size. We've developed a lot of cattle with very large ribeyes, which most consumers don't particularly want, and not necessarily entire muscle of the entire carcass. And so one of the things that this project that we're working on is trying to ferret out is, how do we do a much better job of predicting overall red meat by something other than a ribeye size? And what do we do about that from a selection? How can we then take that back in the system and make sure we're selecting cattle for that purpose?
So what has this process been like? What were the initial meetings like? What information was at hand that you could look at and evaluate? What are maybe some new techniques that have been implemented when you're looking at the red meat end of things, when it's not just the ribeye? What has that process been like? What has the analytics of the data been like? And I know not all the answers are there today, but how long do you think we're going to be before we can look at things like red meat in a different light?
Well, let me back up 20 years, because that's when I really started trying to do something about this. And then we had professors like Dr. Lawrence who scratched their head a little bit going, maybe we do need to look at something a little bit different than we have. And he's done quite a lot of research in this area and began to put together data. Dr. Dale Warner at Texas Tech's done some of the very same kind of work, and some of, intuitively it was one of those things that you knew was out of whack, because obviously cattle have changed significantly since 1960, but we've not done anything to change the way that we were measuring these cattle. But the numbers that they came up with that related to the accuracy of what we were doing was pretty astounding as this process started. And so we pulled together a group of very good scientists, very good people involved in the industry, from seed stock through producers, feed yards, equipment manufacturers, kind of a good cross-section to sit down and start through this process that says, okay, what we have is broken. Now what do we do to fix it? Mm-hmm. And, that's been a really nice evolution, and we're now finding, and Dr. Lawrence can go much better into detail of the technology, but the technology today, I think, is finally here for us to be able to do something about it.
So, yeah, let's segue into that. When we're looking at this, addressing the issue, identifying the issue, then going through it, and obviously technology has changed quite a bit even in 20 years since this discussion has occurred. So, Dr. Lawrence, what has that been like from your perspective, going through academia, then now looking at this and trying to really help find a solution that puts more money in producers' pockets and the cut of meat in front of a consumer that they want to enjoy?
So, beginning about 15 years ago, the industry made a sea change to camera grading technology, and that allowed a more accurate evolution of what we're doing and providing information back upstream all the way to the seed stock producer. The biggest downfall of that technology, though, was we have very very new, very high-tech equipment, yet we implemented an equation that was 60 years old into that equipment, rather than saying, hang on a minute, we're using new technology to predict something of the past. And so the biggest issue goes back to those original animals. There was a great presentation just at lunch in the Cattlemen's College of the change that has happened in cattle over the last 150 years. And the pendulum has swung from large, old cattle reaching harvest to very small-framed, early maturing, lightweight cattle reaching harvest, to the frame-scored 9s and 10s of the mid-1980s, to now an arguably moderate, heavy-muscled, and some would even say over-finished animal of today. Mm-hmm. So the pendulum has swung multiple times, and today's animal looks nothing like the animals of the late 1950s, which were used to create what we now have as the yield-grade equation. So I've seen great improvements in technology, yet as an industry, we've not improved how that technology is utilized in some respects, the yield grade being one of them. So in this committee, the first thing is everybody agreeing, yep, we have a problem, and let's move forward. And I think that took about 2 minutes of the first meeting. And so we're working through how to move forward. And I don't know that we have all of the answers today, but the most important point, at least in my opinion, is there are no naysayers. Everybody is saying, yes, we're going to improve. We're going into a positive direction, and technology will help get us there.
What are some of the existing criteria that will still work well with a new equation of the 21st century, and what were some of those key ones that were like, yep, we don't even need to explore that option?
Yeah. So finish, visual appraisal of finish, measurement of back fat with ruler, that's key. And that is a huge driver in the ultimate yield of both the live animal and the carcass. And that's something that we train livestock judging teams, we train meat judging teams, we train in visual appraisal, and the eye of the master is still good at determining a finish of an animal. That will be most likely an important part of wherever we go. The data would say carcass weight is a really poor indicator of yield. Moreover, ribeye area is also another poor indicator of yield. And one thing that we know in our industry is the internal fat of the animal. Huge variety and variability in that. We could find really lean cattle with maybe 1% internal fat. And in our research, we've cut out up to 11% internal fat from overfinished dairy cattle. So that's one of the things that we think we need to start with. Is kind of a low-hanging fruit almost. We need to start there and agree on how to do that, and then move forward as an industry with the remaining metrics, some to be determined yet. Some we probably need to arguably pull out of the 1950s. Some of those people are doing things right, and then there's some improvement for others.
And so when we're looking at that, what are some of the right out in front of you, a quick takeaway, like this will make an improvement to our measurements? What are some of those, I don't know if technology is the correct word there, but process when we're evaluating?
So one thing that James mentioned is we've done a great job of selecting for ribeye over the past 50-odd years, but ribeye area did not determine and is not as strongly associated with total muscle yield as we had been taught. Mm-hmm. I know I was taught in college that ribeye area and total muscle are very strongly associated, and I think James was probably taught the same. Yet once I actually measure it in cutout studies in the lab, you're like, well, the first time I did it, you think, well, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. And then you measure it again, and then you measure it again, and then after you've done it a few times, you realize it's actually not that strongly associated. So I think one of the big keys for us would be, let's look at total muscle conformation as a measurement of round thickness, circumference of the round diameter, some version of muscling in the hindquarter. Probably the round is easy to do. You know, our feeder cattle grading system, the muscle score of our feeder cattle grading system is based solely on the visual appraisal of an animal in the hindquarter. Mm-hmm. And how thick is it? That's the 1-to-4 system. That works really well for feeder cattle grading. Some semblance of that be it visual appraisal or, electronic objective scoring, will probably improve our yield metric tremendously.
And James, from the cow-calf end of things as well, we know that when you have a customer that's buying your calves, and maybe they're a repeat buyer because they know they're high-quality calves, maybe they follow those yields all the way through, they take the data, they work to improve their cow herds and their calf crops as well. From your perspective, when you're having conversations with producers in the countryside that may just say, oh, red meat yield, huh? Yeah. This is one of the most vital topics in our industry. Government regulations set aside, we this is the product we're producing.
That is what we sell.
Yeah. I mean, but I could just hear somebody say, "Oh, red meat yield. I don't want to go to that cattleman's call." That's why I said I was excited about this conversation. But when it comes down to the bottom line for cow-calf producers, how important is this research and to revamp it and not take another 20 years to address it?
Well, as I said earlier, a lot of times things that we do in this industry have some unintended consequences. And if we look back over the last 20 years, the primary emphasis in our industry has been on marbling. That has been phenomenal for the demand of our product. I don't think anyone can take away from what we've been able to do as an industry and the gap that we've created in value between beef and pork and chicken. And that's purely attributable to quality, and I think we've done an outstanding job there. But one of the unintended consequences of that is that we've added significant numbers of days on feed trying to improve the marbling in these cattle, which days on feed and corn through animals equates to a lot more fat put on the entire animal. When you start to look down the road from a sustainability standpoint of where we are, trying to put that much corn, that much water to raise that much corn through those animals, and then the way that we do it today is we leave all of that fat on the carcass, so we expend a tremendous amount of BTUs to chill that fat. Then it's very difficult to take off cold, and we expend the same BTUs to render that fat. That's a pretty inefficient kind of a system. And so what we've got to do in looking forward is how do we maintain the quality of our product, but be able to do it in a much more efficient manner in producing red meat, which is how we sell the product, is how many pounds of red meat is there.
And so as we look at this, I said not to take another 20 years to do this. What is the timeline? What are some of the goals in place? And it's probably not as simple as, hey, this is our suggestion. Obviously, there's some government regulation and oversight that maybe comes in on that, and that's what the DC team will have to take care of for NCBA down the road. What are the goals in the timeline?
Well, and I will say that is one of the beauty parts about what we're talking about here is grading is a voluntary system, and it is industry driven, and so we're not dealing particularly with government regulations in this part of where we're headed. We as an industry have to decide what we want, and if we want to use the government as a third-party arbitrator to try to make things equal through all the plants and all the part of the country, we can do that. But we're not faced with the government regulation piece. What we are trying to do is find those pieces of technology that can work at line speeds in today's plants. We've found that CT technology, believe it or not, is the gold standard for being able to predict fat, muscle, bone in the animal. We can get extremely high correlations to cutouts of those using CT technology. Unfortunately, that technology is not adaptable to a plant at line speeds. So now how do we take that gold standard and use things like 360 cameras on the kill floor, things like radar technology to run live animals through, to tie those correlations to the CT scans to get a high enough accuracy to accomplish what we're headed toward.
And when we look at it too, at the end of the cattle beef supply chain is that consumer. What are the trends with consumers understanding these yields? Does it? James? What's the consumer take on yields?
Well, and this is the thing that's probably most important, maybe, to get out of this whole deal. The consumer probably doesn't care, other than from a cost standpoint. Mm-hmm. Because we do have lost efficiency. This is purely an industry piece of this, of how do we become more efficient in producing the product that we're producing. And I've given a lot of talks over the years on sustainability, and I always tell people that it's an easy definition of sustainability. It's doing more with less. And if you look as an industry, there's nobody that I could name that's done more with less than those of us in agriculture. Mm-hmm. All the way through. But this is one of those places where we've not maybe accomplished all there is to accomplish in what we can do and where we can go with this. And so I think the whole opportunity in this piece is we can produce more red meat using less inputs and put more money back in the pockets of those people that are producing it.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the key questions that have been asked by your fellow peers in the industry that maybe I haven't asked, or maybe some comments or thoughts that have been brought up recently when we're looking at this process and reevaluating it, or maybe something at Cattlemen's College that got brought up in the audience?
Well, I've been asked multiple times by colleagues, friends, and neighbors in the industry, if you will, what are we going to measure? People want to know now so they can start measuring it themselves and or selecting for it. But in reality, we don't know today. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key. Everybody, when you start talking about making major changes, everybody wants to be at the front of the line. They don't want to be left behind in any of this stuff, and I understand that full well. But we've got to get through the process at this point. We've discovered a lot. I think we've settled on some directions that we need to go, but we need to be able to finish the research and see if we can tie this technology together. Mm-hmm. and do these kinds of things at line speed. And there, I think maybe the simplest part of this thing is for people to step back and evaluate in their own minds what yield is when we're talking about what's really sellable in these animals. And we probably need to start our thinking different first of all, and as we get the technology perfected, we'll be way further down the road.
In terms of that next generation of meat scientists, Dr. Lawrence, so what does the future look like? What is the student base like at West Texas A&M? What's the enthusiasm behind maybe looking at meat science and working in plants and helping lead this charge as well from that next generation?
It's actually very bright. So today we have a group in our lab group, our Beef Carcass Research Center, and our meat lab. We employ 37 students today.
Wow!
And so they're in the meat lab, harvesting, fabricating cattle, pigs, sheep, and they're selling those to the consumers that come into our retail store. And then we operate a research service where we go across the United States conducting in-plant research at normal production speeds. And so the future is very bright. We have a whole host of students coming year after year. In fact, we have more students wanting to be part of our team than we have opportunities today. And that continues week over week. So many, many, many youth want to be a part of the cattle industry, the beef industry, the meats industry. Future is very bright.
What is your lab setup? How up to date is it? Because I'm thinking of Montana State University's lab. We can't even kill there. It's it's on campus, and times have changed there. I'd love to see a new meat lab. So we better talk to our legislature about that down the road. But it's actually in our Linfield Hall. It's in the main ag hall still too. But what is the infrastructure like? What's the technology, and what's the support again in Texas from alumni, from the state? What does that look like?
So in the panhandle of Texas, the support is unparalleled. We're in the heart of cattle feeding country and beef processing country. Tremendous support from all major packers. In fact, the Cavanis family donated funds to name our meats laboratory, the Cavanis Meat Science and Innovation Center. So we're fortunate to operate a lab that is only 6 years old, state of the art, and I'm going to say, although I'm a little bit biased, the best meat science program in the country. We certainly have the best lab. And so we're always looking for new research, great students, and we have a fantastic facility with tremendous support from our industry in which to do that.
And how important is it to support youth, whether they're in 4-H or FFA, and make sure that county fairs have meat judging, or you have the support to understand and train these young kids in meat judging? Because I do think we've kind of seen a renaissance in local processing, and a lot of families wanting to process or market their own beef, whether they're going out by themselves to get state or USDA inspected, or working with to increase capacity. How important is it to educate youth about, again, the product the end goal of our product is to get good beef in front of people? How important is it to foster that through 4-H and FFA?
So it's paramount just to know that the opportunity is there. I'll take myself for instance. So I grew up on a cow-calf operation, and literally, cows, bulls, calves, and you repeat the cycle every year. And then every once in a while you take a beef off to the local locker plant, and I'd drop multiple cattle off. I'd pick multiple sets of boxes up. But I'll say quite honestly, I never thought about what happened in the middle. Mm-hmm. And then I get to West Texas, and I take my first meat science class, and it's like a light bulb went off in that there's a whole world I'd never considered. It's paramount in our industry, but I'd never considered it. And so just that simple opportunity opened doors for me that wouldn't have opened any other way. And it's the same for youth all across Texas and all across the United States today, whether it's a major processor slaughtering 6,000 cattle a day, or your local producer that harvested 2 today. The opportunity is there to get engaged, to be a part of an industry, to put food on the table for America. And those county fairs, the meats judging contest, the livestock show, that's important to get youth engaged early and often.
It's a frustrating point for me, and I've been out of college for a few years now, but when you think of the focus of range science, forages, nutrition, and up where we're at, there hasn't been a strong focus on the meat end of things. And James, from your perspective, again, on that for cow-calf producers on the seed stock end, how important is it, I'd say, especially for college kids, to jump into courses like Dr. Lawrence's, or because again, like I said, I think animal health, nutrition, range health, that's always what we're pushed. And for us, meat was an elective, and I think it should have been more integral. That's my, I guess, jumping on my soapbox right here, James. But what are your thoughts too? And then getting that back into the seed stock conversation too, of raising cattle that are, are the quality there, but are, so we're making those genetic selections as well.
Well, I always tell everyone there's 2 real focuses in our industry. One, as a producer, we are truly grass farmers, and we're using cattle to harvest that grass. Mm-hmm. So that is a very integral part of what we're doing. And I got on my first plant identification judging team when I was 9 years old.
I'm not trashing range science either.
That's been a long time ago. But the other piece of that is we're producing a product that is the most nutrition-dense product available for humans, and we're using resources that are not usable for other products to grow for humans to do that. And we need to be able to determine how to do that in the most efficient, cost-effective manners that we possibly can. So conversion of animal to protein is an extremely integral part, and getting people into and excited. My youngest daughter, I've always admired her approach to how she did this. Her undergraduate degree was in human nutrition, and her master's degree was in meat science. And that has served her extremely well through the years of her career in being able to do that. But I think that's a very good melding of disciplines in what we do in our industry. It's figuring out how do we produce a product that somebody wants to eat.
Yep. Well, I know you guys have had a very busy day so far here today. What are your last thoughts, comments, things you want to clear up when we're focusing on red meat yield? And again, I'm looking forward to what is to come on this topic. Dr. Lawrence?
Well, give us your support. We're working in a very integrated effort, all segments of the United States beef production team working with a common focus to improve red meat yield. And I think we can say confidently that within 5 years or so, we'll have a good answer.
Perfect. James?
Unfortunately, when Dr. Lawrence was talking about his mentor and I were graduate students at the same time. So that tells you a little bit about where I am, and I'm hoping it's faster than 5 years because mine are getting a little bit shorter in where we are. But I think that it's important that everyone understand that this is one of those efforts where the timing is right. We think the timing is right for producers. We're at a point in our industry where we're at low numbers, and as we start to rebuild and do some things, we can do it correctly and not have to reinvent things when we get back into bigger populations of cattle. And so I encourage all cattlemen who have thoughts, or maybe if you hadn't had a thought, but sit down and do some thoughts from what we're talking about today. Feed that back to us. We don't, there's nothing about this that we're wanting to intend to make some mistakes. We're trying to put a lot of thought in, and I can promise you in these rooms, there's a lot of really smart people, and a lot of times I'm having to try to get up on a ladder to try to catch some of the conversation that's going on in there. But they are really doing an excellent job in trying to pull these things together and get us ahead for the future.
Well, again, I want to thank you both for joining us here today and sharing more about this important initiative and work that's going into it. So thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And with that, friends, thanks for joining us. And again, level up your livestock skills. Join us for this year's Stockmanship and Stewardship Regional Events in 2025, taking place in Watertown, South Dakota, Canyon, Texas, and Springfield, Missouri. Get those live cattle handling training from top experts and gain on-the-farm experience and how you can boost your biosecurity protocol and earn your BQA certification. Again, you can go to these for free by receiving a Rancher Resilience Grant. If you want to attend this event and get a Rancher's Resilience Grant so you can attend for free, visit ncba.org and click under the producer tab for that. Again, don't miss out on these 2025 live in-person demonstrations. Just visit stockmanshipandstewardship.org. That's today's Cattleman's Call. I'm Lane Nordlund. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with Lane Nordlund. For more information, visit ncba.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast today.